Hi, this is Damien AtHope, and I'm an axiological atheist, and which is roughly a value theory or a value science atheist. And I'm going to talk to you today about one of my things I enjoy, which is rationalism, specifically rationalist atheism. So I like to say to people that I'm a rationalist. I mean, I do use methodological skepticism, but I don't consider myself a skeptic. To me personally, skepticism at best is inquiry, right? So, and then the other thing, skepticism it would be doubt. Well, it really doesn't matter to me which of those you use, inquiry or doubt. You're still only saying the process of gathering information, not particularly the fact of evaluating its status to me. The moment that you do that, you're no longer, to me, using skepticism. You're now using some other process to validate the information. And so generally this process is done by two main things to me, which is basically empiricism, actual physical evidence of the fact, and then rationalism, the idea, the concept, the whatever. So those are really the tools to me that we process if a thing is a fact. Skepticism is questioning if it is, and then there has to be a way that we establish that it is. Because simply to question without knowledge wouldn't leave us to even know when we could stop questioning. It wouldn't even know that if our question is a good question, a valid question. It could just be like a child asks a question. So that to me, just asking a question with no basis that you're asking the question is not going to help you much. It's like a child saying, well, why do you do this? Like a 2-year-old. And you say, well, it's because of this reason. They go, but why? And but why? And why? And why? And why? And why? And in a sense, if you ask them back to repeat all the answers you just gave, it really wouldn't. They're not really searching and grasping if what we're saying is true and then putting it in context and remembering it all. And in a sense, they're just asking. They're trying to learn. They're just gathering information. They are processing in a sense, but the process of just the gathering is not enough. You have to be able to know. And certainly, let's just say a child could be skeptical. I mean, it doesn't take, in a sense, an age to be skeptical. But to have a total rationalistic thought of things, now that's something that a child will have a lot harder time doing. And certainly, it takes, in a sense, a level of cognitive ability to be able to process things in a certain way that is usually required by rationalism. It's not in a sense that rationalism can't be explained in an easy way for a child. In a sense, you could say everything has to, in a sense, make sense, which to me would be justified, warranted. You're just saying that, like the correspondence theory of truth, something has to correspond to what you're talking about to call it true. So let's get on to rationalist atheism. Almost all rationalists in general are atheists or agnostic, and this is by the BBC article. There have been a long link, in fact, to rationalism and the scientific method. Once again, to me, they're both methodological types of processing to find truth. So there are also a long list of traditions, philosophies that have approached the philosophic question of things through rationalism. And this includes things like ethical questions, because ethical questions require, to me, an understanding of value, moral reasoning, and then, a lot of ways of social understanding and application to solve and understand appropriate moral answers to moral questions. Once again, this is not something that we can just do with intuition. That's why I believe that rationalism has got to be involved, or has certainly benefited from the involvement in ethical questions. So Bernard Russell wrote The Faith of the Rationalist. Now, I personally wouldn't use the word faith because I don't feel it has any inherent meaning to add to something. But anyways, so he wrote, is an example of a rationalist approach to religious belief. But rationalism is an approach to life based on reason and evidence. Rationalism encourages ethical and philosophic ideas that can be tested by experience and rejects authority claims that cannot be proven by experience. And I would say reason and evidence is basically what we mean by that. Some way of knowing something is logically true. That an objective fact, in a sense, is a fact that doesn't change because of someone not believing in it. It doesn't change if someone doesn't even know about it. It still stays the same after knowing. Okay. And because rationalism encourages people to think for themselves, rationalists have many different and diverse ideas and continue a tradition that basically started in the 19th century known as free thought. However, most rationalists still do agree on many things. Generally, they agree on these: that there is no evidence or any arbitrary supernatural authority, i.e. God, magic, spirits. There is no evidence for anything. And you can come up with all the mental ideas you want. You can tell me that all kind of descriptions of what qualities you think they have. But if you don't give the actual things, the actual evidence, the actual reason to think that any of those claims have any validity, then they have to be rejected until they do. But simply, you have to have an ethics of belief. The best explanation so far for why the natural world looks the way it does is the theory of evolution, which is put forward by Charles Darwin. All human beings should have fundamental rights. This is something that most rationalists agree. Just think of it this way. You, in a sense, may feel like you have your own self, you do what you want, but in a sense, really, you don't. We live in a society. There's people constantly doing things around us, for us, because of us. We came here because of people, and we're continually benefited and helped and survive and flourish because of people. So really, to me, ethics and rational relations in general is just how can we most adequately work together so that there's the betterment of all humanity, not just one person, one group, one state, one country, but everybody. Because to me, a rationalist should be seeing the human problem or the human issue, not just limiting it to their own issue. And that's why I think that it is important for, and why rationalists generally are involved in ethics. So some rationalists and humanists go further and agree that animals should have rights too, as they are living and sentient beings. And I would agree. To me, anything that feels, in a sense, has the right to the dignity of not experiencing pain. So that doesn't mean that we don't ever kill things, or it means that we cannot approach it the way we would approach a tree or dirt. Because I would say even a tree, in a sense, is alive, so I would still treat it differently with more of a respect for its life than I would say dirt or rock. So it's the fact that in a sense, though, they're all cells. The rock is a bunch of cells, and so is the tree is a bunch of cells or atoms. And so it's not that the properties naturalistically are different. It's when those properties are arranged, then they become alive, that to me it changes the difference. Just like to me, the difference in the properties are the same in a sense. Humans are made of atoms or whatever. So in a sense, they could be broken down naturalistically, just a bunch of parts, and not have those. Because in a sense, no one would say that the cell, in a sense, has an awareness, as a an atom doesn't have a conscious mind, but a human does. So the tree doesn't have the atoms, in a sense, aren't any alive, in a sense, different, but they don't have the same awareness. So to me, the level of awareness, the level of pain, these are all things that a rationalist can look at, evaluate, and then put it into categories. And then it's not that those categories, in a sense, are found in the world. It's our assessment is taking them and then putting them in understanding where they fit. And this allows us to make decisions, and it changes our perspective. So let's go on to society. This is another thing that is a big effect with these kind of ethical values. So society, to most rationalists, should be an open society, where each individual is able to live their life freely and equally practice whatever life they choose, their life stance, as long as it's not gravely interfering with the lives of others, and in which the human potential is realized and allowed to flourish to its most highest benefit for the individual, the community at large, and all of human society. See, as well as rationalist atheists, is beyond just the not belief in a God. It's about the belief in reason and thinking and how to process life. So it's in a sense almost like adding to a life stance, instead of just saying what you don't agree with. So when you approach life with this kind of reason, rationalists then are free to enjoy things in life, where they can live in the imagination and the force, but they can still have reason as a guide. It's not that a picture can be any less beautiful or explained any less creatively or done, but you understand that a person made it, that's not magic, that you understand that the feelings that you feel are, a process in the brain that are naturalistic. It's chemicals, it's, neurotransmitters. So they're all natural things. And a rationalist understands this. And so, to me, a rationalist atheist is automatically, to me, more tending to be a scientific, also atheist. So it's kind of, to me, the philosophic atheism that's also very scientific. Scientific minded, how's that? Rationalist atheists wish to follow and inspire others in a desire to value epistemology, axiology, rationality. They wish to promote thinking, critical thinking. Rationalist atheists want to strive for a corresponding and a coherent value assessment of the real world, along with epistemologically rational and rational epistemology, as well as accurate, at least in the sense of methodological rationality, concerning things that have an epistemic value. An epistemic is like a knowledge value. So a knowledge value, and epistemology is the understanding and testing of knowledge, truth, belief. So, and it addresses a large frame of how we think, why we think. And this is all stuff that a rationalist cares about, how we think, why we think. Because when a rationalist understands this, then they can properly put things in categories and help them understand. Because to me, rationalist thinking is a slowing down. It's a methodological process thinking. So I usually, for my personal rationalism, I used my own version, Hammer of Truth, and that is OEA. It's basically ontology, epistemology, axiology, and this is the process of how, in a sense, just loosely, I address questions, the world, people, ideas. And ontology is what are you talking about? Epistemology is how do you know that, and what processes or foundation do you do to prove that? And then axiology would assess its quality, its worth, its goodness, its beneficialness, its value. So with those things, though, it's just a standard way that I, as a rationalist, approach things. What am I talking about? How do I know it? How and how valuable is it? So rationalist atheists, they also want to know what is it to be rational. So this means a self-testing, not just testing the world, but self-testing. What do I know? What is rational? What makes sense? How do we know that? So the same thing, right? The OEA, my hammer of truth. What is it? So what is it to be rational? And then the epistemology. So the ontology, what is it? Then the epistemology, how do we know that? So how do we know what's rational? And then axiology, what value is it, certain things, so we can categorize levels of value, because there's different things and different behaviors that can cause greater or different effect. So this also brings up to me that when we ask the question, what's rational? To be rational is generally considered to mean employing logical consistency in our thinking. It's also approaching our conclusions, beyond just assumptions, but from valid and reliable, assumptions that are in agreement with the world, in agreement with reason, in agreement with the facts. So also, to me, this also talks about when we're talking about the quality of a thing, especially for axiology and epistemology, also brings up the thing of an epistemic value, that something has a knowledge, a truth value. It's a kind of value which attaches to cognitive success, such as a true belief, a justified belief, actual knowledge, and valid and reliable understanding. So these kind of cognitive successes often have a real practical value in our life, because it is important to know what something really is and what we should really believe. If I tell you that someone is going to come and hurt you and it's not a true thing, then it's not something worthy. But if I were to say that and it would protect your life, that true value would have a very practical value. The same with justified beliefs, knowledge, understanding. To actually know things really helps us to process the world more effectively. No one wants to go around, a town with an incorrect map. So this also brings me to the thing of true beliefs. And this is important because, to me, I think a rationalist, the first thought we should think is, what are you talking about? How do you know that? What is its quality? And after we do get all that, assess, is it real? Is it really justified? Is it really knowledge? Is it really understanding? And so to me, there's also a thing that means is that we have to have good belief etiquette. So I'm an atheist. I have no problem saying I have beliefs, but they're not random. They're not wishful thinking beliefs out of nowhere. So to me, this belief etiquette means, as a rationalist, that I have a testing of everything that is allowed to even come in. I have a testing of all beliefs, right? So with my hammer of truth, which is ontology, epistemology, axiology. But that just means what I do before I get a belief. So that's just my belief acquisition. But I think there's also a thing we need to have, which is called belief maintenance. So belief maintenance means the fact of keeping a belief. And we should always be updating and checking and rechecking and then checking again. Is this belief still accurate? Do I understand all the complexities of this belief? Is this belief have another way of seeing it? Could this belief have more depth? Could it have less depth? Am I not seeing all sides? Am I seeing only a side I want to see? It's very, very important as a rationalist atheist that you constantly do this. And I know it can be a pain and seem weird to constantly, but you should never be so fixed in a belief that you're not ready to drop it on a dime if there's facts that it is wrong. So, like I said, true beliefs are about what's logically, true. And it fits to the geography of what is considered knowledge. So, this is, like I said, but in contrast, things like religion and gods promote false beliefs. Beliefs that have no substance, no justification, and it should not be called knowledge and shouldn't be called true. And see, but their assumptions are about the existence of, lost it. Oh. So they have to do with, I lost my place for a second. Thinking, oh, there's my cat. Hello. Hi, Demon. This is Demon. You can't see her, but she's not happy. Hey, Demon. All right. Anyways, let me finish. There's not just one type of rationalism, so I don't want to make it that I'm saying that there's one. I have what I consider methodological rationalism, and I want to use an epistemically sound rationality as much as possible. So epistemic rationality is believing and updating yourself upon evidence, as well as systematically improve in correspondence between our map of the world and the territory that's actually there. The things we actually... So then the other thing that at that point comes up to me, in good belief etiquette, is belief relinquishment. And to me, this is a really hard thing, because sometimes we get beliefs and we want to have forever, and we really value, and we start sacralizing them as some kind of special and thing, or so true they can never be changed. You always should be open to be changed. That doesn't mean that you will be, but you should always be open to be being presented the true facts, that you should want the real thing. So this is a real art of accuracy. So to me, a rationalist atheist is really a seeker for accuracy. So the art of obtaining accurate beliefs should be the issue. And then the corresponding reality of those chosen beliefs that they match. And they have valid and reliable reason and evidence. And they follow this as closely as possible. The correspondence is commonly termed truth or accuracy because it's corresponding to the facts of the case. And we should be interested also in instrumental rationality, achieving your values. Now, this is a different kind of rationality, but this to me still is implied in what it is to be a rationalist atheist, because this is still something that we're using, because it is not wrong to have values, that are needs or wants. In a sense, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, everyone in a sense is constantly at some level of needs. And so, because we're humans, it's important to understand that we can then process this rationally. What are our needs in relation to everyone else? What are our needs in our relation to our family, of our lives? So this thinking is really important about understanding how to process our values rationally, because then we can try to base it on ability for us to have and others to have more life flourishing. And that's really an important thing. And it's the art of choosing our actions in a way that corresponds to the best outcomes. The most favorable future is put forward. And so I'll leave it at that, and thank you, and see you next time.